As we start our study of anatomy and physiology, we need a little orientation to the human body. Anatomy is primarily going to be the focus of lab because this is the study of the structure of the body parts. Physiology is primarily going to be the lecture portion of the class because this is the study of the function of the body parts. Now, there are several different topics of anatomy. We have gross anatomy. This is the macroscopic anatomy, where we may look at a particular region of the body. We may look at a particular system of the body, or we may just look at surfaces on the body. Then we have microscopic anatomy. We can either look just at the cells, that's cytology, or we can look at the tissues, that's histology. And developmental anatomy is when we look at embryology, how the individual develops. In physiology, there's neurophysiology, there's cardiovascular physiology, there's renal physiology, there's pulmonary physiology, just to name a few. There are some essential concepts of anatomy and physiology: complementarity, structural organization, and homeostasis. Why do we study anatomy and physiology together? Well, that's because of the principle of complementarity. Structure and function go together. Function is dependent on the structure of the object. So if we change the structure in some way, its function is going to change. For example, blood vessels are designed to be open tubes, but if a blood vessel becomes blocked with cholesterol or clot, blood won't flow. Therefore, the blood vessel will not function like it's supposed to. All life forms are highly organized and are organized along the same levels. The first level of organization is the chemical level. All living things have certain basic organic molecules. These molecules come together to form cells. Cells are the simplest form of life. If cells begin to work together and have a common function, they form a tissue. And if two or more tissues begin to work together toward a similar function, we have an organ. Multiple organs may group together so that an overall function is accomplished. That's an organ system. And the organism is the entire living being. This is all of the organ systems working together to perform all of the life functions. So at the chemical level, we have atoms and molecules. These come together to form cells. Cells may band together in groups to make tissues. Several tissues may come together. Here we had smooth muscle tissue, and here we have smooth muscle and epithelial, and this is making up a blood vessel. So here we have an organ. The blood vessel is a part of the cardiovascular system. The heart and the blood vessels together make up the cardiovascular system, so there we have an organ system. But this human being over here, this organism, functions not only because it has a cardiovascular system, but it's got a nervous system and a digestive system. So all of the organ systems are working together for the organism to be successful. Our third essential concept is homeostasis. Homeostasis is maintaining constant internal conditions. Your external environment changes, but your internal environment must stay relatively constant. Now, all three of these things, complementarity and organization, are key for body function, and homeostasis, the maintaining of internal conditions, are the only way that living things are going to work well. All organ systems have to work together to promote life. The major organ systems that you'll study in anatomy and physiology: in A&P1, you'll study the integumentary system, the skeletal system, the muscular system, and the nervous system. In A&P2, you'll get the rest of them: endocrine, cardiovascular, lymphatic, respiratory, digestive, urinary, and reproductive. Let's look at the organ systems and their functions. The integumentary system protects your deep tissues from injury. Also, your integumentary system synthesizes your vitamin D. Your skeletal system protects organs, acts as a framework for muscles to pull on so that you can move, is involved in blood cell formation, and stores most of the calcium in your body, so it's involved in mineral storage. The muscular system helps you maintain posture. Also, contracting muscles produce heat, and as your muscles contract, they move things. Not only your bones, but blood through your circulatory system and food through your digestive system. Your nervous system is a communication system. It is a fast-acting control system of the body. It responds instantaneously to stimuli and activates muscles and glands to help you maintain homeostasis. The endocrine system is also a control system, but it's a slow-acting control system of the body. It secretes hormones that control cellular activity. This may take hours to days to accomplish. The cardiovascular system transports nutrients and waste throughout your body. The lymphatic system returns fluid back to the blood. As your cardiovascular system is feeding the tissues, some of the fluid from the blood gets pushed into the tissues and doesn't get taken back into the circulatory system. This fluid has to be returned back to the blood, and the lymphatic system does that. The lymphatic system also houses your immune cells and plays an important role in immunity. Your respiratory system exchanges gases. It supplies your blood with oxygen and rids the blood of carbon dioxide. The digestive system breaks food down into the individual nutrients. Also, it helps you eliminate indigestible food. The urinary system is going to eliminate nitrogenous waste. These are the waste products of metabolism that are circulating in your blood. It also regulates water volume and helps balance your blood pH. And the reproductive system makes more people. There are certain things that happen if life is going to occur. These are your necessary life functions. One thing that has to happen is life forms have to be able to maintain boundaries. They have to keep their internal environment separate from their external environment. At the cellular level, the cell membrane is semi-permeable. It only allows certain things to enter or leave the cell. At the organismal level, the skin acts as your boundary. Living things move. Muscles, blood flow, urine, food, all of that has to move through your body, and this is an important life function. Responsiveness is your ability to sense and respond to changes. This is one of the ways your body helps maintain homeostasis. Digestion is the ability to break down food to simple molecules that can be absorbed and used in metabolism. Metabolism are all of the chemical reactions that occur in a life form. These make and use energy. So metabolism is your energy flow. Excretion is getting rid of unwanted products. Metabolism always yields some things that you don't need. So feces have to be eliminated, that undigestible food from digestion. Urine and carbon dioxide get rid of metabolic byproducts. Reproduction. Individual cells have to be able to reproduce in the body if we're going to repair ourselves. And of course, the organism has to be able to make more people. And finally, all life forms display growth. They either increase in cell numbers or they increase in size. Survival needs include nutrients. These are the things in your diet. They provide you with energy. They provide you with the building blocks to make new structure. The second survival need is oxygen. Now, oxygen makes up 20% of the air we breathe. We need oxygen to run the chemical reactions and to release energy. About 60 to 80% of our body weight is water, and this is the third of our survival needs. Water is important in all chemical reactions. Water also dissolves most materials in our body. This means that we can use water-based fluids to help transport materials in the body, excrete things from the body, and make secretions. Body temperature has to stay constant for chemical reactions to occur. Protein synthesis will stop if temperatures in the body get too high, and metabolic reactions will become too slow to sustain life if body temperature gets too low. And finally, we have to have a certain amount of atmospheric pressure around us. We need this in order for oxygen to be driven into our blood. Homeostasis, as we said earlier, is maintaining that internal equilibrium. We must keep that constant internal environment regardless of what happens outside of our body. In homeostasis, there is always some condition we're monitoring. We call this the variable. This condition could be blood glucose levels, blood pressure, body temperature, any number of things. There is a receptor that is a sensor for a stimulus that comes from this condition. Could be a change in pressure, could be a change in glucose levels, whatever. This receptor will send information to a control center somewhere in your body. The control center monitors the condition. It basically checks the stimuli coming in and saying this is normal, this is not normal. As long as everything is normal, the control center really doesn't do anything else. But if the control center decides that this stimulus is abnormal, it will talk to an effector. And an effector will do something to influence the condition, changing it in some way, either increasing it or decreasing it. So as we look at our basic homeostatic mechanism, we have something that we're keeping in balance. Let's say it's blood glucose. All right? And as long as we're sending information to this receptor that blood glucose levels is normal and it's sending that information to the control center is evaluating that information and saying normal, 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 nothing happens. But if we get out of balance, let's say the blood sugar level goes up a little bit, the receptor sends that information to the control center. It's the control center that evaluates and says, oh, that's too high. So it's going to send information to an effector, and the effector will do something to change that blood glucose level, bringing it back into balance. Now we call the incoming information to the control center the afferent pathway, and the output, the outgoing information from the control center is called the efferent pathway. It's alphabetical. Afferent goes in, efferent goes out. But the bottom line is we keep everything in the body in perfect balance all the time. Here is an example of a homeostatic mechanism using body temperature. As long as your body temperature is normal and that information is being sent via these temperature-sensitive receptors to the control center, nothing happens. But let's say you start doing something and your body temperature rises. Remember, muscle contraction generates heat, so maybe you start working out. Well, as your body temperature goes up, your control center gets the information that you're getting too warm. It sends information to effectors. In this case, they're sweat glands, and you start to sweat. And the reason you start to sweat is because if sweat evaporates, your body temperature will fall. Now, when you get back to normal, that stimulus ends. You stop sweating, and we're back to normal. But let's say you start sweating, and it's a cold day and you go outside, and so that sweat evaporates really fast and your body temperature drops. Now your receptors are sending that information to the control center, and the control center is saying, oh, too cold. This time, the effectors it stimulates are skeletal muscles, and you start to shiver because that's going to generate some heat and hopefully bring you back in balance. So there you have a homeostatic mechanism monitoring body temperature. Now, homeostatic mechanisms operate because of feedback mechanisms. A negative feedback mechanism opposes the initial change. This helps prevent sudden severe changes in the body. Basically, if something is going up, the effector is going to make it go back down. If something is going down, the effector is going to make it go back up. Almost all of the feedback systems in your body are negative feedback systems. This is how we maintain blood glucose levels, body temperature, blood pressure, pretty much anything you can think of. Positive feedback mechanisms are relatively rare. With a positive feedback system, the variable changes in the same direction. That is, it intensifies the initial change. So if something is going up, it keeps going up. Positive feedback is used to control infrequent events. Labor contractions and platelet plug formation are a couple of examples of things that use positive feedback. Now let's look at a negative feedback system. This is one of glucose. Glucose should stay about 90 to 100 milligrams per deciliter. But you eat a Snickers bar, you increase your blood sugar level. This is going to stimulate the pancreas to produce insulin. Insulin helps move glucose into your cells and helps store glucose as glycogen in your liver so that we reduce circulating glucose levels and we come back to normal. But now let's say you skip lunch and your blood glucose drops. Well, now the stimulus is going to cause the pancreas to release a hormone called glucagon, and glucagon will stimulate the liver to break down that glycogen to glucose and dump it back into the blood so your blood sugar level comes back up. Now, most of these negative feedback homeostatic mechanisms are constantly doing a balancing act to help you maintain normal levels. Now, here's an example of a positive feedback mechanism. If there is a break in a blood vessel, these damaged cells send out chemical signals calling platelets to the area to stick to this damaged area. And it will continue to release those chemicals and call platelets to the area until we have plugged the area with platelets. Now, once the damaged tissue is no longer exposed, we stop sending the chemical call for platelets. So we shut off that system. If we didn't, we would just continue to collect platelets until we had totally obscured this blood vessel, and that would not be a good thing. Homeostatic imbalance is when there is some disturbance in homeostasis. This usually results in a disease. Typically, positive feedback mechanisms will take over and they will overwhelm negative feedback mechanisms. Homeostatic imbalance often results from aging. The parts of the homeostatic mechanism, the receptor, the control center, or the effector, become less efficient, so they don't respond as quickly as they should. We can have pathological homeostatic imbalance, and this occurs when there is some damage in the feedback mechanism. Now the feedback mechanism no longer operates, and so we are out of control. We can't return something back to normal.